It was the crowning achievement of my 50 years on Earth. 3 years of my life, gone in a blur of late nights, skipped meals, and endless negotiations, all leading up to this exact moment. I stood in the glass elevator, watching the city skyline shrink as I descended toward the main lobby. The merger I had orchestrated was worth $4 billion. It was the kind of deal that made careers, the kind of deal that cemented legacies. I had poured every ounce of my energy into saving this financial analytics firm from the brink of collapse, and today was the day we signed the paperwork to make it official. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Silas Thorne's name flashed on the screen. Silas was the lead investor, the man holding the keys to the kingdom. I took a deep breath, smoothing the front of my charcoal suit, and answered. "Harvey, where are you?" Silas asked, his voice booming with the kind of confidence that only comes from having billions of dollars at your disposal. "We are all waiting in the lobby. We are ready to make history today." "There has been a change of plans," I said, keeping my voice steady. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a dull rhythmic thud against my ribs. "I am no longer with the company." Dead silence on the other end of the line, the kind of silence that feels heavy, almost suffocating. "What are you talking about, exactly?" Silas finally asked, the booming confidence replaced by sharp confusion. "I have been terminated. Effective immediately," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Terminated? On signing day?" Silas let out a short, incredulous laugh. "This is some kind of negotiation tactic. Harvey, you don't play these kinds of games." The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. I stepped out into the expansive, marble-floored lobby. I could see Silas standing near the security desk, surrounded by his team of high-powered attorneys and advisors. He had his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing wildly. Behind him, coming down the sweeping staircase, was Chloe Vance. Chloe was the daughter of our vice president, Richard Vance. She had just been appointed as the new head of human resources, a position she was wildly unqualified for, handed to her purely on the merits of her last name. "No tactics, Silas," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the cavernous lobby. "Just the reality of the situation. I suggest you speak with the company's representatives about how they wish to proceed." I walked out of the elevator bay, carrying a small cardboard box containing the few personal items I had managed to grab from my desk. Silas spotted me almost immediately. His expression shifted from confusion to outright alarm. He ended the call, shoving his phone into his pocket, and strode toward me, his team trailing behind him like a flock of well-dressed geese. "Harvey," Silas said, wrapping me in a sudden firm hug. It was the kind of embrace you give a friend who just received terrible news. He pulled back, holding me by the shoulders, his eyes searching my face. "Ready to sign the merger?" I took a slow, steady breath, acutely aware that Chloe Vance was standing just a few feet away, watching the exchange with a smug, self-satisfied smirk on her face. "Afraid not," I said, my voice carrying across the quiet lobby. "She just fired me. The deal is off." Silas's expression hardened instantly. The warmth vanished from his eyes, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. He slowly turned to face Chloe, who suddenly looked very small despite her designer heels. "You did what?" Silas demanded, his voice low and dangerous. The smugness evaporated from Chloe's face, replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. She clutched the employee handbook to her chest like a shield. Behind Silas, the entire investment team stared at her in stunned silence. "I was just enforcing company policies," Chloe stammered, her voice shaking slightly. "He violated the dress code. His tie is the wrong shade of blue, and his shoes are not the approved style for executive meetings." Silas stared at her, his jaw clenching. "You fired the lead negotiator of a $4 billion merger because of his tie and his shoes?" Just then, Richard Vance, Chloe's father and the vice president of the company, rushed out of another elevator, trailed by several panicked-looking board members. "Silas, please," Richard said, his face flushed and sweating. "I am sure we can sort this out. Harvey is incredibly valuable to us. This is clearly a misunderstanding." But Silas had already turned his back on Richard. He was speaking quietly to his legal team. I caught fragments of their rapid-fire conversation. Words like gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty floated through the air. I stood there, silent and still, watching 3 years of my life dissolve in real time. Richard approached me, lowering his voice to a desperate whisper. Harvey, please, let's discuss this privately. Chloe is new. She was overzealous. We can fix this. There is nothing to fix, Richard, I replied, my voice loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Your daughter made a decision. You supported it by your silence upstairs. I accept my termination. Silas turned back to face the group. Our agreement was with Harvey, he said, his voice ringing with absolute finality. He structured this entire deal. He understood what both companies needed. Without him, we are not comfortable proceeding. You cannot just walk away. Richard protested, his voice cracking. The contracts are drafted. The press releases are scheduled for noon. Actually, we can, Silas countered, his eyes narrowing. Page 17. Section 4 of your own agreement includes a key person clause. Harvey is specifically named. If he leaves the company before closing for any reason other than illness or death, we have the right to withdraw without penalty. I had insisted on that clause months ago. It was standard practice to protect the merger if anything unforeseen happened to me. Now it was the very instrument that would tear the company apart. Harvey wrote that clause. One of our corporate lawyers whispered to Richard, his face pale. He was the only one who insisted on it during the review process. Silas extended his hand to me. Harvey, when you decide what is next for you, call me. Talent like yours is rare. He shook my hand firmly, then turned on his heel. He and his team walked out of the glass doors, leaving a thick, suffocating silence in their wake. I nodded once to my former colleagues, adjusted the grip on my cardboard box, and walked out into the bright morning sun, ignoring Richard's desperate pleas for me to come back inside. The spring air felt different. It felt lighter, despite the immense weight of what had just transpired. I was a 50-year-old man with no job, no immediate prospects, and I had just watched my greatest professional achievement turn to dust. Yet, beneath the shock and the anger, I felt something entirely unexpected. I felt free. My phone buzzed continuously as I walked the 3 blocks to the parking garage. I turned it off without checking a single message. Whatever catastrophic crisis was unfolding back in that boardroom, it was no longer my problem to solve. They had made their bed, and now they were going to have to lie in it. And from the looks of things, it was going to be a very uncomfortable rest. At home, I poured myself a generous glass of bourbon, then sat out on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant shades of orange and purple. I realized with a jolt that I had not noticed a sunset in years. When was the last time I had actually been home before it was dark? When had I last taken a moment just to breathe? The bourbon burned slightly on the way down, a sharp, grounding sensation that reminded me I was still alive. Later that evening, news alerts began popping up on my tablet like rapid fire. The company's stock had plunged 28% in after hours, trading on rumors that the massive merger had collapsed. By the next morning, when the opening bell rang, it would fall another 12%. The financial analysts on the morning shows were vicious, tearing into the company's leadership. Thousands of jobs hung in the balance. The firm I had worked so tirelessly to save was now in a terrifying free fall. A part of me felt a pang of guilt. There were good, hard-working people in that building who would suffer because of this catastrophe. But a stronger, colder part of me recognized that I had not failed them. Their leadership had failed them. Richard Vance and his entitled daughter had set the building on fire, and I was not about to burn with them. For the next week, I completely ignored calls and messages. Former colleagues, aggressive financial journalists, eager headhunters. Everyone wanted to know exactly what had happened in that lobby and what my next move would be. I was not ready to answer anyone. Instead, I slept. I cooked actual meals instead of eating lukewarm takeout while staring at spreadsheets. I reconnected with friends I had barely seen in 3 years. I have never seen you this relaxed, my brother Oliver said during a video call on a Thursday afternoon. Getting fired might actually be the best thing that ever happened to your blood pressure. Harvey? Maybe, I admitted, taking a sip of my coffee. But I still cannot believe how abruptly it ended. 3 years of my life, Oliver. 3 years of sacrificing absolutely everything to pull them back from the brink. And what did they ever sacrifice for you? Oliver asked, his tone hardening. Nothing. You gave them your soul. And the very first time that Chloe girl flexed her unearned power, they let her destroy you. He was not wrong. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was the truth. 2 weeks later, Richard finally managed to catch me when I accidentally answered my phone, expecting a call from a contractor about my kitchen remodel. "Harvey," Richard breathed, sounding as though he had aged 10 years. "Please do not hang up. We desperately need to talk." "I am listening," I said, leaning back in my chair. "The board of directors wants to meet with you. The situation here is—" He paused, searching for the right words. "It is significantly worse than we anticipated. We need your help." "My help to do what, exactly? To fix the unfixable? To somehow bring Silas back to the negotiating table and save the company? The same company that terminated me for wearing the wrong shade of blue on a Tuesday?" His sigh was heavy with exhaustion and profound regret. "That was a catastrophic mistake. Chloe has been removed from her position. I have been formally reprimanded by the board." I remained completely silent, letting the dead air stretch out between us. "Please, Harvey. Thousands of jobs are at stake here. Good people who worked alongside you, who deeply respect you. People who sat silently while I was humiliated," I thought to myself. But I kept that observation private. "What exactly is your offer?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. "Come to the board meeting tomorrow morning. Name your terms. Whatever it takes." I considered hanging up right then and there. But something deep inside me, the part that had spent years building the foundation of that merger, could not quite let it die. "I will think about it," I said, and ended the call without another word. That night, sleep eluded me entirely. I paced the floor of my apartment, staring out at the city lights. What did I actually want? Reinstatement? A public, groveling apology? Cold, calculated revenge? Yes. A voice inside my head whispered all of the above. By sunrise, I had my answer. I called Richard back as he was likely on his morning commute. "I will meet with the board today, not tomorrow," I informed him. "And I will be coming with very specific conditions." 4 hours later, I walked into the grand boardroom wearing the exact same charcoal suit, blue tie, and shoes I had been fired in. The message was anything but subtle, but then again, subtlety had not worked in my favor before. The 12 board members rose collectively when I entered the room. Their expressions ranged from desperate, clinging hope to deep, embarrassed discomfort. Richard looked like he had not slept in a fortnight. Chloe Vance was, unsurprisingly, absent. "Thank you for coming, Harvey," the chairman said, offering a tight, anxious smile. "We deeply appreciate your willingness to discuss this unfortunate situation." "Let us skip the pleasantries," I replied, taking the seat at the opposite end of the long mahogany table. "In the 2 weeks since my termination, your stock has plummeted 62%. 3 of your major clients have publicly announced they are reviewing their contracts. The business press is running daily speculation about exactly when you will file for bankruptcy." Grim, silent nods rippled around the table. "You have lost the Silas Thorne merger, which was your absolute last real chance at survival. Even if I could miraculously convince Silas to reconsider, and that is a massive if, the terms would be vastly worse for you now." "We understand the gravity of the situation," Richard said quietly, "but we have to try something." "Why should I lift a finger to help you?" I asked, my gaze sweeping the room. "You all sat in silence while your vice president's daughter fired me on a ridiculous whim. Not a single one of you spoke up for me or the immense value of the work I had done." The board members shifted uncomfortably in their expensive leather chairs. "We made a terrible, grave mistake," the chairman admitted, his voice raspy. "What would it take for you to return to us?" I opened my leather briefcase and withdrew a thick, crisp folder. "These terms are absolutely non-negotiable." I slid the folder across the polished wood, watching as the chairman eagerly flipped it open. Inside was a meticulously drafted document my attorney had finalized at 3 in the morning. I had made sure to include very specific legal language to protect myself and punish them. The chairman's eyebrows shot up as he read the first page. He passed it to Richard, whose face drained of color. "This is incredibly extensive," Richard stammered. "It is," I agreed. "It includes full reinstatement at triple my previous salary, a permanent seat on this board, complete and total autonomy over corporate strategy, and a substantial non-dilutable equity stake in the firm. It also requires a public statement acknowledging the wrongful termination." "And what is this clause here?" The chairman pointed to page 3. "Regarding new ventures, Any new business initiative I develop while employed here remains 60% my personal property, I stated clearly. The company may claim 40% ownership, but I retain absolute controlling interest. Furthermore, I require a formal declaration that my previous non-compete agreement is void ab initio, meaning it is legally invalid from the very beginning. I will not be bound by your restrictive covenants ever again. That is highly unusual. One board member objected, frowning deeply. So is firing your chief strategy officer over a tie on the day of a $4 billion merger. I shot back, my voice dangerously calm. Consider it my insurance policy against any future misunderstandings. Also note the clause detailing your exposure to a breach of fiduciary duty claim if you fail to act in the best interest of the shareholders by rejecting this offer. The board members looked at each other in stunned silence. A tense, unspoken conversation passed between them. And if we agree to these unprecedented terms, the chairman finally said, swallowing hard, you will try to bring Silas Thorne back? I will try, but I make absolutely no promises. Another long exchange of panicked glances. Then, slowly, the chairman pushed the contract back toward me, now bearing his signature on the dotted line. Done, he said, his voice barely a whisper. One by one, the other board members signed away their leverage. Richard was the last. His pen hovered hesitantly over the paper before he finally added his name. When can you start? The chairman asked, looking defeated. I already have, I said, standing up and gathering my things. I will be in my office making calls. I suggest you all prepare for a very difficult, very painful few months. As I turned to leave, Richard called after me. Harvey, what about Chloe? I paused at the heavy oak doors, not turning around. What about Chloe? She is still with the company, reassigned to a junior role in the research department. Will her presence be a problem for you? I smiled a thin, cold smile. Not for me, Richard. Not for me. That evening I poured another glass of bourbon, sat at my kitchen island, and dialed Silas. The conversation was long, tense, and incredibly difficult. As I had predicted, he was deeply reluctant to re-engage with the firm. Your company showed its true colors, Harvey, Silas said, his voice echoing over the speakerphone. Why on earth would I ever trust them again? You would not be trusting them, I replied smoothly. You would be trusting me, and I now have the ironclad legal authority to guarantee absolutely every promise I make. After 2 grueling hours of intense negotiation, he finally agreed to consider a revised proposal. However, the new terms were significantly less favorable for my company. It was a massive financial hit, but it was better than total annihilation. Over the next few weeks, I worked relentlessly to stabilize what was left of the crumbling firm. Several departments had to be completely restructured. People lost their jobs, though I made absolutely sure that none of the casualties were the innocent employees who had been completely unaware of the boardroom drama. I saw Chloe occasionally in the hallways. She always looked away quickly, darting into the nearest office or staring intently at the floor. I never approached Chloe. I never mentioned her name in meetings. Her presence meant absolutely nothing to me. Or so I told myself. But an idea had begun forming in my mind from the first day of my return. That unusual specific clause in my contract, the one giving me majority ownership of new ventures, had not been random. I had a long-term plan. A plan that would take considerable time and incredible patience to execute. It began with a quiet conversation with Jasmine, our brilliant head of product development. I need a side project, I told her over lunch at a quiet diner down the street. Something small, something highly experimental. Can your team help me explore a new vertical? Jasmine, delighted that I had singled her out, agreed immediately. What kind of project are we talking about, Harvey? I have been thinking about professional clothing, specifically high-end, adaptive men's workwear. She looked genuinely surprised, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth. That is not exactly our industry. We are financial analysts. No, we are not, I agreed, taking a bite of my sandwich. But it is an area entirely ripe for innovation, and my new employment contract explicitly allows for the aggressive exploration of new business verticals. Within days, Jasmine had secretly assembled a small, dedicated team. We worked late evenings and long weekends, conducting market research, developing rough prototypes, and testing various materials. I was particularly interested in suit designs. I wanted comfortable, highly professional suits with subtly adjustable elements. Suits that could transition from a strictly conservative boardroom standard to a more modern, relaxed fit with a few clever design adjustments. Why not just make them all the standard, traditional fit initially? One team member asked during a late-night brainstorming session. Because different corporate workplaces have completely different, often arbitrary cultures, I explained, leaning against the whiteboard. And professionals should not have to buy entirely new wardrobes when they change jobs, or when some entitled executive decides to arbitrarily change the rules. The development team embraced the challenge with enthusiasm. They saw it as a fantastic creative outlet from their regular, monotonous analytical work. Meanwhile, during the day, I continued the grueling process of rebuilding relationships with our key clients. Slowly, painfully, I reconstructed a viable merger plan with Silas's firm. The company remained in severe danger, but the immediate, terrifying threat of total bankruptcy slowly receded into the background. Richard watched my relentless work ethic with a complex mixture of deep gratitude and weariness. He knew perfectly well that I had saved his job for now, but he also sensed that I was not quite the same man who had walked out of that lobby carrying a cardboard box. "You have changed," Richard noted one evening as we reviewed the quarterly projections. "Have I?" I asked without looking up from the spreadsheet. "You are harder somehow, much more distant." I finally looked up, offering a cold smile. "Traumatic experiences shape us, Richard. Being publicly humiliated and fired in front of silent colleagues tends to permanently adjust one's perspective on corporate loyalty." He winced, rubbing his temples. "I have apologized for that. Profusely. Yes, you have. Several times. And I have accepted your apology. But acceptance is not the same thing as forgetting." As the weeks slowly turned into months, our secret clothing project progressed from a wild concept to a tangible reality. We partnered with a small, elite manufacturing facility to produce a limited run of early prototypes. I paid for the initial manufacturing entirely through my personal funds, ensuring that any company resources we used were properly and legally compensated, exactly as outlined in my ironclad contract. The initial designs were elegant, incredibly functional, and subtly revolutionary. Each piece incorporated our signature feature: complete adaptability to different workplace standards without ever sacrificing supreme comfort or sharp style. I began wearing our prototypes to the office. Simple pieces at first. Dress shirts with convertible collars, blazers with hidden, adjustable tailoring elements. No one commented openly, but I noticed people watching. Then came the full suits, beautifully tailored, impeccably professional, and secretly adjustable. One day I wore a strictly traditional cut. The next day I adjusted it for a slightly more modern silhouette. Men in the office eventually began asking where I shopped. Instead of answering directly, I quietly invited them to participate in private focus groups, collecting their valuable feedback on the daily challenges of workplace clothing. "The rules are just so incredibly arbitrary," one senior analyst complained bitterly. "At my last job, a slightly patterned tie was perfectly fine. Here, we are terrified of stepping out of line because of some unwritten code. It feels completely infantilizing." Others nodded in strong agreement. "What if," I suggested, leaning forward, "you had pieces that could seamlessly adapt to different environments, professional but entirely flexible?" Their immediate, overwhelming enthusiasm confirmed exactly what I already suspected. We had identified a massive, genuine gap in the market. 6 months after my triumphant return to the boardroom, our small disruptive clothing line, which I had officially named Adaptations, was finally ready for a highly anticipated limited launch. We had a sleek website, a manufacturing partner eager for massive orders, and a rapidly growing waiting list of interested customers. The pieces were finally falling into place. The day before our official public launch, I called a mandatory, company-wide meeting. Everyone attended, deeply curious about the highly unusual summons. As I walked confidently to the front of the packed auditorium, I noted with immense satisfaction that Chloe was present. She was sitting in the very back row, trying her absolute hardest to blend into the beige wall. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice projecting clearly across the silent room. "Today marks an important milestone for our firm. We have weathered an incredibly difficult period, stabilized our core business operations, and we are finally ready to announce something entirely new. Richard, sitting in the front row, looked completely confused. This announcement was absolutely not on his printed agenda. For the past 6 months, a small, highly dedicated team has been working on a special project. One that represents not just a new product line, but an entirely new direction for our future. I clicked a button, and the massive screen behind me displayed the minimalist logo for our new clothing line. I am incredibly proud to introduce Adaptations, I announced. Professional clothing meticulously designed to adapt to ever-changing workplace environments and arbitrary standards. Confused murmurs swept rapidly through the large room as I clicked to the next slide, displaying stunning photographs of our models wearing the versatile designs. These are not just clothes, I continued, pacing the stage. They are practical solutions. Every single piece in this collection addresses a specific, infuriating challenge that professionals face daily. I stopped in the center of the stage, gesturing to my own impeccably tailored suit. Take this jacket I am wearing. At first glance, it looks like a standard traditional blazer, but it features an ingenious, hidden adjustment system. With a few discrete, simple moves, it can transform its silhouette entirely while maintaining a sharply professional appearance. I demonstrated the quick adjustment, showing the stunned audience how the jacket could completely transform while still looking perfectly tailored. No more buying entirely different wardrobes for different corporate cultures. No more living in absolute terror of arbitrary, sudden rule changes. Richard shifted very uncomfortably in his seat. Several senior board members exchanged nervous, wide-eyed glances. In the back of the room, Chloe stared with wide, horrified eyes as total recognition dawned on her pale face. You might be wondering why a prominent financial analytics firm is suddenly launching a high-end clothing line, I said, offering a shark-like smile. The answer is wonderfully simple. We identified a market need, and we created an innovative solution. I advanced to the next slide, displaying staggering projected revenue figures that made several executives sit straight up in their chairs. Our extensive market research indicates massive, untapped demand. We have secured elite manufacturing partnerships, built a robust distribution channel, and created a brilliant marketing strategy that capitalizes on authentic, compelling storytelling. I paused, locking eyes with Chloe across the vast expanse of the room. Every single piece of Adaptations clothing will include a special tag explaining its true inspiration. It tells the story of how a single, incredibly arbitrary judgment, a minor dispute over a dress code, nearly destroyed a century-old firm and completely derailed a $4 billion merger. The room went completely, terrifyingly silent. Nobody dared to look at Chloe, but every single person in that auditorium knew exactly who I was discussing. That specific incident revealed something incredibly important, I continued, my voice echoing in the silence. When professional capability is entirely subordinated to superficial petty judgments, absolutely everyone loses. Adaptations offers a practical solution to that exact problem. I clicked to the final slide, displaying our official launch date. Thanks to my very specific employment contract, which explicitly grants me controlling interest in any new ventures I develop, Adaptations will operate as a totally separate, independent entity. This company will hold a 40% ownership stake. All resources used during development have been properly, legally compensated. Richard stood up, his face flushed with anger and panic. Harvey, this is the first I am hearing about this. The board needs to heavily discuss the timing. The board explicitly approved my contract, which gives me absolute autonomy over this specific venture, I interrupted smoothly, citing the exact legal authority I held. The timing is absolutely non-negotiable, but I heavily welcome your continued support. I turned back to the stunned audience. This is not just about suits and ties. It is about recognizing that true professionalism comes from extreme competence, hard work, and integrity. Not from strict adherence to arbitrary rules created by people desperate to control rather than empower. With that, I thanked everyone and ended the meeting, completely ignoring the chaotic buzz of intense conversation that immediately erupted. As the employees filed out, I noticed Chloe remained seated, staring blankly at the dark screen. I walked right past her without a single word of acknowledgement. My point had been made, and the real consequences were just beginning. The launch of Adaptations exceeded our projections. The business press immediately picked up the story, focusing heavily on the innovative designs, but they also highlighted the origin story. Headlines reading "Fired over a blue tie," how one executive turned corporate humiliation into a massive innovation, dominated the financial news cycle for weeks. Orders flowed in relentlessly, overwhelming our inventory. Then, Silas Thorne gave a high-profile interview to a major financial magazine. "I wear their suits exclusively now," Silas told the reporter. "They are the best designed clothes I have ever owned, and I strongly believe in supporting leadership that values actual substance over petty, superficial appearances." That single interview went viral. Our orders doubled, then tripled overnight. Richard called me into his spacious office the morning after the interview was published. "This is getting significantly bigger than any of us anticipated," he said, gesturing nervously to the towering stack of sales reports on his desk. "Yes, it is," I agreed, taking a seat. "The board is growing highly concerned about the public relations damage." He sighed heavily. "The story behind this brand, it is making us look incredibly foolish. It is making Chloe look completely incompetent." "The story is entirely factual," I replied calmly. "It is deeply damaging, Harvey." "Sometimes the truth is deeply damaging," I countered. He leaned forward, looking desperate. "What is your endgame here, Harvey? To humiliate my daughter forever? To constantly remind the entire industry of our massive mistake?" I considered his question carefully. "What I want," I said finally, "is for reckless actions to have severe, permanent consequences. When Chloe fired me, she did so believing her nepotism would shield her from any real fallout. You sat silently, believing the exact same thing. The board did nothing." I stood up, adjusting my custom blazer. "Adaptations is not about endless humiliation. It is about massive transformation. Taking a highly destructive, humiliating event and creating undeniable value from it. That is a lesson truly worth teaching." 3 months later, Adaptations had become an absolute phenomenon. Our financial results were staggering. The clothing line generated more gross revenue in its first quarter than the company's core analytics business. The 40% ownership stake I had generously allowed them to keep had rapidly become the firm's most valuable asset. Meanwhile, the renegotiated merger with Silas finally closed at terms far less favorable for Richard's firm, but it was just enough to keep the lights on. On the 1-year anniversary of my wrongful termination, I called one final company meeting. "1 year ago, I was wrongfully terminated from this exact building," I told the crowded auditorium. "Today, I am proud to announce that Adaptations will become a completely independent company effective next month. This firm will retain its minority stake, providing substantial ongoing revenue." Thunderous applause broke out. "Second," I continued, "I have officially created a philanthropic foundation funded entirely by our profits. It will provide massive grants and high-level mentorship to professionals facing workplace discrimination or dealing with a hostile work environment." I paused, finding Chloe in the audience. She looked diminished, having spent a year in a low-level role watching the devastating consequences of her entitlement unfold publicly. "The foundation will also include a highly unique fellowship program," I announced. "It is specifically designed for individuals who have made massive professional mistakes and can demonstrate genuine, quantifiable growth afterward. The application process is now open." After the meeting, Chloe approached me nervously. "The fellowship program," she said quietly. "Would I be eligible to apply?" I studied her face. The toxic entitlement was gone, replaced by a harsh, sobering reality. "The application process is incredibly rigorous," I told the young woman. "There will be absolutely no special treatment." "I understand," she said. "I just need to do something completely different." I handed her my business card and walked away. She did apply. She did not receive a full fellowship, but she was granted an alternate position, a small acknowledgement of her potential for growth. Richard eventually stepped down, quietly pushed out by the board. As for me, Adaptations grew into an international empire. The true revenge was never about destroying them. It was about proving that real professional worth comes from extreme competence and unyielding integrity. I took their attempt to erase me, and I built a legacy they would be forced to admire for the rest of their lives.